Welcome everyone. We're now going to start the new chapter of the thermodynamics. I'm your teacher, Dr. Mohammad Uzair, and today we are going to start a new chapter, and the chapter name is the energy transfer, and the general energy analysis. As we know, energy is the ability to change. The energy is basically producing a change. So we have already know that there are different form of the energies. Let's suppose we have a room. The room is completely adiabatic, means there is no heat transfer coming in from outside or going outside from inside. Inside this room, we have a fan or a refrigerator. Now, if we turn on the fan or refrigerator, what will happen? As the walls are adiabatic, so no heat will come in or go out from the walls. The only energy which is coming inside the room is the electric energy. As this electric energy is coming inside by the wires and we are running the refrigerator, so what will happen? Ultimately, the electric energy will convert into the heat by the device. As a result, the temperature of the room will increase. So here we have a refrigerator. The walls are well sealed and well insulated. So when the energy is coming through these wires or by the electricity, so it will turn on this refrigerator. This refrigerator will produce heat and ultimately the room temperature will increase. The same case is for this fan as well. In both cases, there is no energy transfer through the walls. So all the energies will be shifted into the heat of the room. But there is an issue. Either it is heat or something else. The temperature of the room is going to increase, but it is heat or not. So we will answer this one after 2 or 3 slides. So first of all, we should know about different forms of the energy. We already know that there are different forms of the energies. We have the kinetic energy, we have the potential energy, we have the chemical energy, we have the electrical energy, we have the mechanical energy, we have the nuclear energy, we have the solar energy. There are different forms of the energies. And for any system, the sum of all the energies is called the total energy of the system. And normally we represent it by capital E. So we have the total energy of the system, E, which is the sum of all these type of energies. Now, if we are talking about the thermodynamics deals only with the change of the total energy. The change of the total energy. Now, we have different form of the energies. So what we do? We classify these type of energies into two broad categories. The one is called the macroscopic energies and the second one is called microscopic energies. Macroscopic and microscopic. So first one is macroscopic form of the energies. Those a system possesses as a whole with respect to some outside reference frame. such as kinetic energy, potential energy. So whenever you are going to check the energies from outside reference, so it will be macroscopic, and it will be normally kinetic energy and the potential energy. So normally the macroscopic energy of an object changes with velocity and elevation, because kinetic energy is attached with velocity while the potential energy is attached with the elevation. So we have macroscopic energy. We have another form of energy which is called microscopic, and the microscopic energies are related to the molecular structure of a system and the degree of the molecular activity. Now, when we are talking about the molecular structure of the system and degree of the molecular activity, then we have different forms of the energies inside the system. We have the chemical energy of the bonds, we have the latent energy, we have the sensible energy of the electrons, we have the nuclear energy as well. Inside system, we have different form of the energies, but what we do, we normally define another term which is called internal energy, denoted by capital U, and this is the sum of all the microscopic energies. So all the sum of all the microscopic form of the energies are called the internal energy. So there is no need to worry about the microscopic energy. We will only use the internal energy, which is the sum of all the microscopic energies. So we have two types: macroscopic, in which we have kinetic energy, we have potential energy, and microscopic, in which we have the internal energy. This is the basic formula for the kinetic energy, which is half mv square, and it is written as in capital words, and you can see the unit is joule or kilojoule. Joule or kilojoule. Normally the unit is joule, so it is kinetic energy. But in most cases, we have to define as specific kinetic energy. And when we are talking about the specific, it means the energy is divided by mass. So if I'm going to divide this kinetic energy by mass on both sides, so it will be v square upon 2, and there will be no mass, so it will be like this one. Kinetic energy is v square upon 2, and this is kinetic energy per unit mass or specific kinetic energy. And here please be careful, whenever we have specific energies, then we will use the small letters. So you can see here we are going to use the small letters. Here we have the capital letters for whole energy. So we have the capital words for kinetic energy, we have the small letters when we are talking about the specific energies. Same way we have the potential energy, mgz or mgh, and this is again joule or kilojoule potential energy. And then we have the specific potential energy. Now in the specific potential energy, we are basically going to divide both sides by mass. So here you can see we are not putting any mass value because the mass will cancel out by mass. So we have the kinetic energy, we have the potential energy, and if we are going to combine these two energies, you will get macroscopic energies. Now if we have to check the total energy, so total energy is the sum of all the macroscopic and microscopic energies. So the total energy, which is E, is the sum of all the microscopic energies, which is equivalent to the entire energy of the system, plus we have the macroscopic energy, which is the kinetic energy plus potential energy, the microscopic energy, and we have macroscopic energy, and sum of all these energies is called the total energy of the system. So I can rewrite this one as internal energy plus half mv square plus mgz, and because I'm writing in term of mass, so we have the unit of joule or kilojoule. and this is E, so it is the total energy. I can write the energy in term of specific as well. If I'm going to divide by mass, then what will happen? I'll get like this one. So E divided by mass, so I'll get this small e, which is the specific energy or energy of the system per unit mass. Entire energy divided by mass, I'll get the entire energy per unit mass. Kinetic energy divided by mass, I'll get the specific kinetic energy, plus potential energy divided by mass, I'll get the specific potential energy. So the complete equation will be like this one. So we have u plus v square upon 2 plus gz, and in this case, because I have divided by mass, so the unit is joule per kg or kilojoule per kg. So I can write the energy equation in term of total energy or in term of specific energy. So we have like this one. The specific energy is the total energy divided by mass. Now the capital energy or total energy or specific energy, they are both written in term of kilojoule or kilojoule per kilogram. But sometime we have to define the energy flow rate. The energy flow rate. So what we do? We normally define like this one, like this. So this is the energy, and if I'm going to put a dot on it, so it will be energy flow rate. The E with a dot. So this is energy flow rate, and we have m dot and we have E, and there is no dot on it because this is specific energy. So if I'm going to multiply the specific energy with the mass flow rate, so the answer will be equal to the energy flow rate. And because it is flow rate, so it means we are going to divide by time. So whenever you see a dot on any quantity, so it will be the quantity divided by time. So we have energy flow rate, which is E dot equal to m dot E. So we have kilojoule or joule per second, and when we have the joule per second, so it's equal to watt as well. So we have joule per second or kilowatt. Normally in the thermodynamics, any fluid, it can be like gas or liquid. So when we are talking about a flow rate, because in the open system there will be a mass flow, so then we have to define the energy flow rate. So we have to define the energy flow rate in the like this one. So we have E dot is equal to m dot E. So let's suppose we have a pipe here. So the diameter of this pipe is d. So area of this pipe will be pi by 4 d square or pi r square, either pi r square or pi by 4 d square. So this is the cross section area of this pipe, and a fluid is flowing through it. Right now the fluid is steam. The velocity of the steam is v. So the mass flow rate will be equal to rho times area, the cross section area, times the velocity. So we have rho av, and it will be equal to mass flow rate. We have to remember this formula. You have to remember the mass flow rate formula, which is equal to rho av, density times area times the velocity. This is velocity, it's not volume. Okay, so we can define the energy as energy flow rate. So this is the same as I've discussed here. M dot is equal to rho av. Now here if you see, we have A, which is area, and it will have the unit of meter square, and then we have the velocity, and it will have the unit of meter per second. So if I'm going to combine these two terms, the area times the velocity, so the complete unit will be meter square times meter per second, so it will be meter cube per second. So the combined unit of A times velocity will be equal to meter cube per second, and the meter cube per second is equal to volume flow rate. So I am going to replace this area time velocity by V dot. So it will be volume flow rate. You cannot divide V by time. If you're going to divide V by time, so you'll get the acceleration. So this is basically volume. This is not the velocity. So either we can write m dot is equal to rho V dot, and this V is volume, or I can write m dot is equal to rho AV. So now this is velocity, it's not the volume. So this is mass flow rate. So if I'm going to multiply this mass flow rate with the specific energy, so I'll get the energy flow rate. The energy flow rate. Now we have two more types of energies that we have to study. These are basically the entire energies or the microscopic energies. We have the sensible energy, means the portion of the entire energy of a system associated with the kinetic energies of the molecules. The sensible energy, which is the portion of the entire energy of the system associated with the kinetic energy of the molecules. While we have another energy which is called the latent energy, and this is the portion of the entire energy associated with the phase of the system. So whenever you are going to change the phase of the system, phase means like solid, liquid or gas. So if you are going to change the solid into liquid or liquid into gas, so during phase change the energy transfer will be equal to the latent energy, and whenever it is associated with the kinetic energy of the molecules, so it is called the sensible energy. Remember, the the thermometer will read the sensible energy because there is change in the temperature. In the sensible energy, we can see a change in the temperature, while in the latent energy there is no change in the temperature, because during phase change the temperature and pressure remains constant. So we have to check the latent energy, and if we are going to combine these two energies, the sensible plus latent, so it will be equal to the thermal energy. So we have the thermal energy which is equal to sensible plus latent energy. Now we are going to define one more energy, and this time we have mechanical energy. If you are going to check the definition of the mechanical energy, it simply states the form of energy that can be converted to the mechanical work completely, and directly by an ideal mechanical device such as an ideal turbine. So whenever the energy is converted into mechanical work with the help of any mechanical device, it is called mechanical energy. And how we can write the equation for the mechanical energy? It's simply like this one. We have the E mechanical, or the specific mechanical energy, or the mechanical energy per unit mass. So we have kinetic energy, we have potential energy, and we have to define one more energy which is called flow energy. So this P upon rho is basically flow energy. And the mechanical energy, we have kinetic energy plus potential energy plus flow energy as well. And right now, because this is the energy, so the unit of each term will be equal to joule per kg, because this is specific one. So it's joule per kg or kilojoule per kg. So it will be joule per kg or kilojoule per kg, kilojoule per kg, and this one is also equal to kilojoule per kg. So we have the flow energy plus kinetic energy plus potential energy, and sum of all these energies is equal to the mechanical energy. So this one is the mechanical energy. I can write the mechanical energy in term of the rate of mechanical energy. So this is rate because I'm just putting a dot on the capital sign. So by putting a dot on it, so it will be the rate. So we have the mechanical energy per unit time. So we have E dot, and it will be equal to M dot E. And this time this is E mechanical, so I'm just putting up mechanical here. So we have the rate of mechanical energy, and it's equal to mass flow rate times the E mechanical, so it will be M dot times this whole value. So we have P upon rho plus V square upon 2 plus Gz. So this is the rate of mechanical energy. So please be careful with the rate of mechanical energy or the rate terms. We have specific terms and then we have total terms as well. So mechanical energy change of a fluid during incompressible flow per unit mass. So now I'm going to write the equation in term of change. So if I'm going to talk about in term of change, that means we are talking about between two states. So it will be like this one. We have the delta means change. So it will be equal to P2 minus P1 upon rho. Now I'm not putting rho 2 minus rho 1 because I'm talking about incompressible. Whenever we have the incompressible, so the density will be same. So density is not going to change. That's why rho 1 and rho 2 are same. Now we have plus, and then we have the velocities, the difference in the velocities. So it will be v2 square minus v1 square upon 2 plus g is constant value, and then we have z, which is z2 minus z1. So this is the mechanical energy change per unit mass. This is change per unit mass, and even I can rewrite the equation for the change in the rate of mechanical energy as well. The rate of mechanical energy change, so it will be like delta E dot mechanical, and this is like this one. I'm not putting m dot, and there's no delta for m dot, is simply like this one. So we have the mechanical energy like this one, we have the flow energy plus kinetic energy plus potential energy. So I can rewrite in terms of change, or I can write the equation for the rate of mechanical energy or rate of mechanical energy change. After this, we have the energy transfer. We have the energy transfer. There are three modes of the energy transfer. Energy transfer will be done either by heat or work or by mass. By heat or by work or by mass. If we have a closed system, then the last one, which is by mass, the energy transfer by mass will not be there, and the energy will transfer only due to heat or work. But for the open system, we have mass flow rate as well. So then we will have all these three types. We will have the heat, work and mass. So the energy will transfer by only these three modes. There is no extra mode. We have only three modes of the energy transfer. So energy will transfer by heat, energy transfer by work, and the energy transfer by mass. So what is heat? Heat is the form of energy that is transferred between two systems or between system and surrounding by virtue of a temperature difference. By virtue of a temperature difference. If there is no temperature difference, then there will be no heat transfer. If there is no temperature difference, then the heat will not transfer from one system to another system. So always, if there is any energy transfer by virtue of the temperature difference, then it will be heat. So if you can see here, we have the soda bottle here. we have 3 different soda bottles. We have the room temperature at 25 degrees Celsius, and this bottle is also having a liquid at 25 degrees Celsius, because now we have the thermal equilibrium, because we have the same temperature for the room temperature and the soda bottle. So there is no heat transfer because the temperature is same, so there is no heat transfer. In this case we have 15 degrees Celsius and we have 25 degrees Celsius, so there will be a heat transfer, and the heat will flow from higher temperature to lower temperature. And we have another case where we have 5 degrees Celsius, so the heat will flow to this soda bottle. Only thing is, if you can see, we have here 8 joule per second and we have 16 joule per second. So larger the temperature difference, the higher is the rate of heat transfer. In this case you can see we have 25 and 5, so the temperature difference is 20 degrees Celsius, and in this case we have 10 degrees Celsius. So the larger the temperature difference, you will get the larger or higher the rate of heat transfer. So here normally what we do, we define the heat by Q. The Q, just like this one, we have a Q, capital Q, and this will be equal to the heat, and we will have the unit of joule or kilojoule. I can rewrite like this one. If I'm going to divide this Q by mass, so you'll get this specific energy, so it will be equal to heat transfer per unit mass. So capital Q will show you the heat, the small q will show you the heat transfer per unit mass or specific one. Or if I'm going to divide this q by time, that will be equal to q dot, and q dot will be the rate of heat transfer. The rate of heat transfer. Right now I'm going to write like this one, so it's like q dot is q upon delta t. So if I'm just shifting this delta t from here to here, so it will be q is equal to q dot times delta t, and this is the amount of heat transfer when the heat transfer rate is constant. When the heat transfer rate is constant, and in any case, if the heat transfer rate is not constant, then we have to integrate it. Then we have to use the integration sign. If this q dot is not constant, then we have to integrate it. So remember, we have the capital Q, which is heat transfer, we have small q, which is specific heat, and then we have q dot, which is the rate of heat transfer. The rate of heat transfer. Now, what is this? This is a potato. Let's suppose we have a big potato, and this one is our surrounding. The surrounding here, and this is our system. I'm going to analyze this one, and I'm just saying that this is the boundary. This dotted line is the boundary. So if this big potato is at the high temperature compared with this air, so what will happen? The energy will transfer from the system to the surrounding, from the system to the surrounding through this boundary, through this boundary. So the energy will transfer from this boundary. So the system energy will decrease, then the surrounding energy will increase, and you can see the amount of energy is same. So 2 kilojoule and 2 kilojoule for the system and surrounding. So total energy of the system and surrounding will be same. So the heat transfer will occur only when there is the energy transfer at the boundary. So energy is recognized as heat transfer only as it crosses the system boundary. If it's not crossing the system boundary, then it will be only internal energy. So in the start of the lecture, if you remember, we were discussing about a room having a fan inside the room, and there was the electric energy. Because there was no heat transfer through the boundary, so the electric energy was increasing the temperature of the system, and that temperature was increasing the internal energy. because there was no energy transfer through the boundaries. There was no energy transfer through the boundary. Now, in any case, if we have the adiabatic one, in any case, if we have the adiabatic system, then you can see there is no Q in, there is no Q out. So Q value will be 0. During an adiabatic process, a system exchanges no heat with its surrounding. So for the adiabatic, Q will be 0. So we have Q, small q, capital Q, and Q dot. Now, heat transfer mechanism. We have three types of the heat transfer mechanism, or the three modes of the heat transfer. We have conduction, convection, and the radiation. The conduction, convection, and radiation, these are three modes of heat transfer. Yes, these are not the modes of energy transfer. For the energy transfer, we have heat, work, and mass flow rate. So we have the conduction. When we talk about the conduction, so it is the transfer of energy from the more energetic particles of a substance to the adjacent less energetic ones as a result of interaction between particles. Normally, the conduction will occur when we are dealing with solids. So, in the conduction, there is energy transfer from the more energetic particles to the less energetic ones as a result of interaction between particles. The second one is convection. Convection heat transfer will occur when there is bulk motion of fluid. If there is a fluid and it is moving, then we will say there is a heat transfer due to convection. So the transfer of the energy between a solid surface and the adjacent fluid that is in motion, and it involves the combined effect of conduction and fluid motion. So for the convection, there should be a fluid and then there should be a motion of fluid. If we have the fluid in static form, then it's not called the convection, rather than it will be a conduction. So fluid should be a moving fluid. And then we have the last one, which is radiation, a transfer of energy due to the emission of electromagnetic waves or photon, and it's called the radiation. Now we have the energy heat transfer mechanism, the conduction, convection, and radiation. We will study these topics in detail in a new uh, class, which is the heat transfer, in I think in your third year. So please don't worry about the detail of this topic. I'm just mentioning. I just mentioned this one just for information. So we have the heat transfer mechanism, we have the conduction, convection, and radiation, and this is only for information. This slide is not included in our course. Now we have the energy transfer by heat. Then we are going to discuss about the energy transfer by work. If we are talking about the work, so we have the basic formula for the work, which is equal to F dot S, the force times the displacement. So normally the work is the energy transfer associated with a force acting through a distance. This is a simple physical definition. If we're talking about the work, so a rising piston in a piston cylinder device, or the rotating shaft, and an electric wire crossing the system boundaries, all are associated with the work interaction, because in all cases there will be a force and there will be a distance. So work is the energy transfer associated with the force acting through a distance. And now we have the formal sign convention. The heat transfer to a system and work done by a system are positive. The heat transfer to the system and the work done by a system are positive, while the heat transfer from the system when heat is going out and the work done on a system are negative. So this is the formal sign convention. Alternative to sign convention is to use the subscripts in and out to indicate direction. And I think this is the easiest way to use it, because sometimes there is a confusion that the the energy, the heat transfer going in is positive or the heat transfer coming out is positive. So instead of using the formal sign convention, remember, if you're going to write, or if you can check, either the heat is coming in or heat is going out, or work is coming in or work is going out, then you can easily write the equation for the energy balance. Likewise, the heat, here I'm writing W for the work, and I'm going to write the specific work done by a small letter or small w. So small w is work done by mass. So it's joule per kilogram. So joule per kilogram is simply W upon m, and you will get the specific work done. And normally when we are talking about the uh, W dot, so W dot will be the work done per unit time, and the work done per unit time is also known as the power. So let's suppose we have a system here, and we are doing a work of the 30 kilojoule within a time frame of 5 seconds. So simply if I'm going to divide this 30 by 5, so I'll get 6, and this is joule per second, so I'm just getting 6 kilowatt of the power. 6 kilowatt of the power. Or if we have a mass of 2 kg, so this is the work done. So specific work done will be 30 divided by 2, so you will get 15. So simply 30 divided by 2, you will get 15. So remember, we have the capital W, we have small w, and then we have W dot, and which is equal to work done. And this is the formal convention. Q in, Q out, W in, W out. So if you are going to remember this one, then it will be easy to write the energy balance. Now here, for any closed system, energy can cross the boundaries of a closed system in the form of heat or work. So again, like heat, work will also pass through the boundary. If there is no energy transfer through the boundary, then it is not work or it is not heat. For the heat, there should be a temperature difference, and for work, there should be energy transfer through the boundary. So there is a comparison between heat and work. So first one, the heat and work both are recognized at the boundaries of the system as they cross the boundaries. So if there is no energy transfer crossing the boundary, then there will be no heat and there will be no work. So both heat and work are boundary phenomena. If there is no energy transfer through the boundary, then you will not get any heat and then you will not get any work. For heat and work, the energy should transfer through the boundary. We have another point. System possess energy but not heat or work. For any system, we can say that it has a kinetic energy of something. Let's suppose 5 joules or 5 kilojoule. We have the potential energy of 10 kilojoule. But we cannot say that this system is having a 3 kilojoule of heat. Heat will be only on the boundary, and when there is energy transfer through the boundary, so system will not possess any heat or not, and it will not possess any work, because when the energy will transfer through the boundary, so state will be different. So system only possesses the energy but not heat or work. The next point is about both are associated with a process, not a state. This is same as I've discussed in the point number 2, because state doesn't possess any heat or work, so it is associated with the process. So So it means whenever there is a heat or there is a work, then there will be a process. So it will be a change in the state. So when there is a change in the state, change in the state is due to a process. So heat and work are associated with the process, not a state. And because it's not associated with the state, then unlike properties, heat and work has no meaning at a state. I can say that we have a property, we have a volume at state number 1 is equal to, let's suppose, 1 meter cube, and at state number 2 the volume is 3 meter cube. But we cannot say that this state has a heat or work of 1 kilojoule or 2 kilojoule, and the second state has the work of 2 of or 3 or any value of kilojoule. So unlike properties, heat and work has no meaning at this state. And the last important point, both are path function. Both are path function. Normally when we are talking about the properties, properties are point function. We have two different functions, point function and path function. Heat and work are path functions. That means their magnitudes depend on the path followed during a process as well as at the end state. So magnitude will be different if you are using a different process. So it will depend on the path. It will not depend on the point. So here if you see, we have two different states. We have point number 1, state number 1, we have point number 2, state number 2. At point number 1 we have a volume of 2 meter cube, and at point number 2 we have a volume of 5 meter cube, and we have different process. We have process 1 or process A, and then we have a process B. If we're talking about the point function, let's suppose if I'm going to take the property, or if I'm just checking what is the delta V between 2 and 1, or if I'm just checking V2 minus V1, so in both cases I'll get simply 5 minus 2, which is equal to 3 meter cube. So you can see we have the delta V is equal to 3 meter cube, because we are only checking the state, we are only checking the point. But when we're talking about the work done, so it will depend on the path. We have two different paths. We have a path of process A and we have the path of process B, and in both cases we have different paths, so the burden will be different. So it's not depending on the end state, it's basically depending on the process, and basically depend on the path function. And normally on a PV diagram, the area under the curve on a PV diagram is equal to work done. So here if I'm going to check the work done for the process A, so it will be the area under this curve, and for process B the area under this curve is equal to the work done. So you can see we have process B, we have process A, so work done for process B will be higher. So you can see here as well. Now we have the process 1, we have process 2, and we can get the different answers. Now one more thing here, for the path function we have to use the inexact differentials like this one. We cannot use delta, we have to use this one, the inexact differential. So please do not use delta for work or delta for Q as well. So we have these points, and all these points shows that the heat and work are basically boundary phenomena, and they are path functions. Now when there is energy transfer, so it means we have to define the first law of thermodynamics as well. Energy transfer is simply that the energy is going from system to another system or system to surrounding. So first law of thermodynamics, or the energy conservation principle states that the total energy of the system and surrounding will be same, or in other words, the energy neither be created nor be destroyed. You cannot you cannot produce or you cannot destroy the energy, but you can shift the energy from one form to another form. So whenever you are shifting the energies from one form to another form, so it's mean you are basically changing the energy, and then there will be a relationship between the various form of the energies. So first law of thermodynamics provides a sound basis for studying the relationship among the various forms of the energy and the energy interaction. So this one is the energy can be neither created nor destroyed during a process. It can only change forms. Now when you are going to change, so we have the energy before and the energy after, but ultimately the total energy of the system and surrounding will be same. Now this is the formula that you have already studied in your uh, schools or in college for the first law of thermodynamics. We have the entire energy, which is delta U, then we have Q minus W. Q is heat added to the system and we have work done by the system. In this course, I'm not using this one, rather than I'm using the alternate approach, and I'm just simply using the energy balance. So what is energy balance? The energy balance is the energy in to the system minus the energy out from the system will be equal to the change in the energy of the system. So the net change, increase or decrease in the total energy of the system during a process is equal to the difference between the total energy entering and the total energy leaving the system during that process. Simply like this one. The total energy entering the system, which is energy in, minus the total energy leaving the system, which is energy out, and the difference of these energies will be equal to the change in the total energy of the system. So now this change can be positive or negative as well. So we have E in, we have E out, and then we have delta E system. So we have three different energies: the energy in, the energy out, and then we have delta E system. Now here, if you can see, we have an example. We have a piston cylinder device. This is a closed system because mass cannot in or mass cannot go out. Right now we have a adiabatic piston because this is the adiabatic one, so there is no Q in, there is no Q out. So the work done on an adiabatic system is equal to the increase in the energy of the system, because this is the in, so we have work done in, so we have only work done in and there is no out, so this in minus out will be a positive one, so it means the system energy will increase. So the system energy will increase. Now remember, we have two different energies. One is which is crossing the boundary in and out, and we have one which is possessed by the system. Like here, we have a system here. We have a Q in, we have a Q out, we have a W in. So with the help of this equation, we have in, which is in 15 kilojoule, and we have n of 6 kilojoule. So we have 15 plus 6, we have 21, and then we have negative sign, and then we have out, and we have out of 3 kilojoule. So 15 plus 6 in, 21 minus 3 which is going out, so we will get 18 kilojoule. So we have 18 kilojoule of the delta E system. Now the energy change of a system, in the previous equation if you see, we have like this one, the system energy change, and we have in and out. So we have two different types of energies here. The first one, I'm going to talk about the energy change of a system. For any system, we will have the change in this term. Energy at final state minus energy at initial state. Simply, what is energy at final state, and we have the energy at the initial state, we will subtract and then we will get the energy change, like this one. We have a delta E system and we have the E2 minus E1 or E final minus E initial. The energy system, the energy of the system only possesses the macroscopic and microscopic energies. We have the delta U, which is entire energy, we have the kinetic energy, and we have the potential energy, which is sum of all the macroscopic energies. So macroscopic plus microscopic, you will get the total energy of the system. So this is basically delta E system. So it's the summation of kinetic energy, potential energy, and the internal energy. And in most cases, if we are going to define the stationary system, for any stationary system, kinetic energy change and the potential energy change will be equal to 0. For stationary systems, we will say that there is no kinetic energy change and there is no potential energy change. So we don't have any kinetic energy and potential energy term here. So only the system energy change will be equal to the change in the internal energy. So we will have only internal energy for the delta E system. So this is about delta E system. When we are talking about the next term, which is about in and out, so mechanism of energy transfer in and out, and it is only associated with mass, heat, and work done. So in and out is only due to heat, which is Q in minus Q out, plus due to work, W in minus W out, plus energy due to mass, mass in and mass out. So energy due to mass. So this equation shows the energy transfer through the boundary. So if we have the closed system, then we will not having this term. There will be no mass transfer, so we can neglect this term. So we will have only Q and W for open system. Sorry, for closed system. And for open system, this one is the complete one. So this is the basic general equation. So we have the delta E system, which is equal to delta U in case of the stationary system, and then we have in and out, which is equal to Q in minus Q out plus W in minus W out plus the energy mass in minus energy mass out. So like this one, this is the basic equation of the this is the basic energy balance. So we have E in minus E out, which is net energy transfer by heat, work, and mass, and then we have delta E system. This is change in the kinetic and potential energy of the system. For the system, we have internal kinetic and potential energy. For in while for in and out, we have heat, work, and mass. By combining all these terms, you can see I'm going to write E in minus E out equal to like this one, and this one is equal to delta E system. So I can replace this one as well. In terms of specific energy, so it will be E in minus E out is equal to delta E system. So these are in terms of specific energies. Or in terms of change, I'm going to write like this one. Now you can see here, I'm using D here and NXZ differential here. XZ differential, NXZ differential. XZ differential because these are point function, and NXZ differential because these are path function, because these are only heat, work, and mass transfer. Or I can write in term of specific one like this one. So we have specific one like this. Now here we have a system. This is basically an open system. You can see we have a mass in, we have mass out, we have W in, W out, we have Q in, Q out. So the energy content of a control volume can be changed by mass flow as well as the heat and work interaction. And if we don't have any open system, then we will only have Q and W. Now we are going to solve some basic questions for this topic. Here, if you can see, we have a river which is flowing towards a lake at an average velocity of 3 meter per second at a rate of 500 meter cube per second at a location 90 meter above the lake surface. And in this question you have to determine the total mechanical energy of the river water by unit mass, and then you have to find the power generation potential of the entire river at that location. So here you can see the water is flowing from here, it's going down and running the turbine and it's producing the power. So right now we have the potential energy like this one. We have the 90 meter difference, height difference. So this water is having more potential energy than this one, and it's flowing at a velocity of 3 meter per second. So we have a kinetic energy as well. In this question we have to find the total mechanical energy per unit mass. So it means we have to find the E mechanical, the small one, the E mechanical, and the formula for E mechanical is this one. We have E mechanical, which is P upon rho, the pressure upon rho plus V square upon 2 plus dz. And you can see there is no information given about the pressure, so I'm not using it. I'm just simply neglecting the P upon rho value, which is the flow energy. I'll use only the velocity value or kinetic energy and the Z value or the potential energy. So right now we have the velocity of the 3 meter per second. We have Z value of 90 meter. So by putting the values, you will get 3 square upon 2 plus the G value, which is 9.81 times 90, and you will get 887.4 joule per second. This is the mechanical energy. So you are getting of 887.4 joule per second or watt of mechanical energy. And this mechanical energy is basically specific mechanical energy. So we have this specific mechanical energy of 887.4. And in the question, you have to find the power generation as well. The power generation potential of the entire river. So what is the power generation? So when we are talking about the power generation, so basically you have to find E dot. E, the energy divided by time, you will get the power. So I can write the equation for energy divided by time or power like this one. Sorry, like this one. So we have the power or E dot, that's equal to m dot E. So we have mass flow rate times the E, and it's equal to the power E dot or W dot. So what is mass flow rate? Mass flow rate is simply like this one. Mass flow rate is rho times the volume flow rate. Rho times the volume flow rate. And the question, volume flow rate is given. That's why I'm using this formula, rho times the volume flow rate. If the area and velocity is given, then I can use rho AV. But in the question, area is not given. So I'm using rho times the velocity. Oh, sorry, rho times the volume flow rate. And volume flow rate is given. Now you can see here the density value for the water is 1000. You have to remember it. Then we have volume flow rate of 500 meter cube per second. So you will get a mass flow rate of like this one, kilogram per second. So the power generation potential will be W dot or E dot is equal to m dot E. So I know what is E and we know what is m dot. So simply by putting this one, you will get 443,700 kilowatt or 443.7 megawatt. You can see here this is mass flow rate and this is 0.887. This is divided by 1000 just to convert into kilo. So if you're using 887, then ultimately you will get a kilo here, or just divide by 1000 and then you can write the kilo. So this is only due to unit conversion. So mass flow rate times the energy and you will get the power potential. Moving to next question, we have At a certain location, wind is blowing steadily at 10 meter per second. The wind is blowing at 10 meter per second. Determine the mechanical energy of air per unit mass, and then you have to find the power generation potential of the wind turbine with 60-meter diameter blades at that location. The density of the air is given, which is 1.25 kilogram per meter cube. In this question, basically what we are doing, we are using the wind turbines to produce the power, and for wind turbine we have air which is moving at a speed of 10 meter per second. So in this case, the mechanical energy is only due to the kinetic energy. There is no potential energy involved to rotate the blades of the wind turbine. So we have only kinetic energy. So the mechanical energy will be equal to the v square upon 2, because we don't have any flow energy, we don't have any potential energy. So the energy associated with the mechanical energy is only kinetic energy. So I can easily find out the E mechanical like this one, and you will get the answer of 50 joule per kg. This is the wind energy per unit mass of the air, or the mechanical energy per unit mass of the air. Now you have to find the power generation. For the power generation, like in the previous question, we simply multiplied this E by mass flow rate. Now in this question, area is given. Because diameter is given, so you can easily find out the area, which is pi r square or pi by 4 d square. Because diameter is given, so pi by 4 d square will be equal to the area. Velocity is given, which is 10 meter per second, and the density value is given, which is 1.25. So simply density times the area times the velocity, you will get the mass flow rate, and then you have to multiply with the E, and then you will get the power potential. So here this is mass flow rate rho AV, and then E dot or W dot, or the power generation is simply m dot E, which is rho AV times this E. So mass flow rate times the E, and you will get the power potential. So rho times pi over 4 d square times velocity times E, all values are given. Simply just put the values and you will get the answer. So this is density value 1.25 times pi over 4 60 square times 10 times 50, and you will get this answer. Or I can write like this one. So 1767.146 kilowatt or 1.7 megawatt. In this way we can find the power potential at a site. We have one more question. In this question, if you see, the water is being heated in a closed pan on top of a range while being stirred by a paddle wheel. During the process, 30 kilojoule of heat is transferred to the water and 5 kilojoule of heat is lost to the surrounding air. The paddle wheel work amounts to 500 Newton meter. Determine the final energy of the system if its initial energy is 12.5 kilojoule. Now, anyone can solve this question by using the first law of thermodynamics, that is delta U equal to Q minus W. But then you have to remember that the energy in is positive or the energy out is positive. Either work done by the system is positive or work done on the system is positive. Instead of using this one, simply use the energy balance. The energy balance states that the energy in minus energy out is equal to delta of the change in the energy system. So it's mean we have the energy in, energy out, and then we have delta energy of the system. So for delta energy of the system or change in the energy system, we have only the internal energy. So I can write the equation like this one. We have this one, which is change in the energy. We have in, and then we have out. So we have all the energies which is coming into the system minus all the energies that is going out the system, and then we have U2 minus U1, which is delta E system because we are talking about a stationary system. There is no kinetic energy, there is no potential energy. So what is N? We have N of 30 kilojoule, so this is 30. We have N of 500 Newton meter. Now this is Newton meter of 500 and this is joule in term of kilo. So please be careful. And this is going out of 5 kilojoule. So we have 5 kilojoule, we have 30 kilojoule, and then we have 500 Newton meter. So it will be equal, and we have the initial energy, initial internal energy of 12.5 kilojoule. So we have U1 of 12.5 kilojoule, and you have to find what is U2. So it's simply like this one. If I'm going to rewrite this one, so it will be U2 is equal to Qn plus Wn minus Q out plus U1. So it's simply U1, which is 12.5. We have Qn, which is 30, and then we have this one 500 divided by 1000. So I'm just multiplying with 10 power minus 3. 500 divided by 1000 because this 500 is in term of Newton meter. So you have to convert in term of kilo. So first we have to convert in term of kilo. So you have to divide by 1000. So this is 500 divided by 1000, and then we have minus of 5 kilojoule of Q out. So ultimately you will get 38 kilojoule. So we have U2 of 38 kilojoule. You can use the first law of thermodynamics statement. You can see this is the same. Delta U Q minus W. But instead of writing Q and remembering that either work done is positive or work done on the system is positive or Q in is positive or Q out is positive, we are simply saying that the energy in and the energy out, and then we are simply solving it. So there is no need to remember that what is the sign convention. In this way we can easily find out what is the U2, U2, sorry, U2. So this is the end of chapter number 2. I hope you will not face any problem in this chapter. In any case, if there are any queries, then you can contact me through your classroom, or you can you can email me. Inshallah, we will discuss the remaining portion or about the suggested question in the live session. Thank you.